Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, a fissure opens up, leading to another dimension. Through the fissure, a giant monster appears, and destroys portions of San Francisco. After several days and countless lives lost, the creature is defeated by human military forces. However, what seemed to be an isolated attack builds as more creatures begin to come through the fissure, attacking coastal cities around the Pacific. The world unites to stop the invaders, and develop the Jaeger program, a series of giant mechanical warriors, intended to stop the creatures. Original tests to have one pilot per Jaeger prove unsuccessful. It was then decided that each Jaeger would be piloted by 2 pilots, their memories linked together in the drift, synchronizing their movements to maneuver the massive machines. As the Jaegers go to work, they begin to turn the tide, and take down the creatures which are named Kaiju. In 2020, 7 years after the fissure opened, one of the more famous Jaeger duos, Raleigh Beckett and his older brother Yancey, become heroes with an impeccable record of defeating Kaijus. Pilots of the Jaeger named Gypsy Danger, they are sent off to stop a Category 3 Kaiju heading towards Anchorage. Though the information on their monitors shows a fishing boat in the path of the attack, the Becketts are told their priority is to protect Anchorage. Disobeying orders, the 2 still save the fishing boat, but end up being brutally attacked by the Kaiju, which possesses a head designed specifically to penetrate the Gypsy Danger's chest. In the battle, the Kaiju rips off the Gypsy Danger's left arm, and tears away a chunk of the Gypsy Danger's helmet, sending Yancey to his death. Raleigh barely manages to pilot Gypsy Danger on his own and finishes the battle, using the robot's giant plasma blaster to kill the Kaiju. Raleigh later pilots the Jaeger to a remote beach where it finally collapses. Raleigh walks out, bearing injuries from the battle. He collapses on the beach, exhausted and emotionally devastated from his brother's death. After the attack, Raleigh leaves the Jaeger program. 5 years later, he finds work along the western coast of the United States as a construction worker, helping build a giant coastal wall that is meant to keep the Kaiju out. Numerous countries have called for the program to be terminated due to spiraling casualties of Jaeger pilots in the increased Kaiju attacks and the enormous cost of keeping it funded. Many assume that building the coastal barriers will make them safe, but the head of the program, Stacker Pentecost, claims that the world's leaders are making a terrible mistake. Even though Pentecost claims the program is still viable, it is relocated to Hong Kong and given 8 months of funding before the program will be permanently retired. Raleigh sees television reports that a Kaiju has broken through the wall surrounding Sydney Harbour in Australia. Fortunately, a Jaeger named Striker Eureka was still stationed in the area before being moved to Hong Kong and is able to take the Kaiju down. After seeing the news report, Raleigh is surprised when a helicopter lands near his construction area, with Pentecost requesting he come along. Raleigh is reluctant to join the Jaeger program again, however, Pentecost convinces him that he belongs in the pilot's seat. Raleigh is then flown to the Hong Kong base, known as the Shatterdome, where he meets Mako Mori. Pentecost also introduces Raleigh to 2 scientists under their command. Dr. Newton Geisler, who studies the biology of Kaijus, and Dr. Gottlieb, who calculates the frequency of Kaijus coming through the rift. Within the Shatterdome, the last remaining Jaegers and their crews have been assembled. The 3-pilot Crimson Typhoon, Cherno Alpha, Striker Eureka, and Gypsy Danger. Gypsy Danger has been rebuilt and retrofitted for more extreme combat. Raleigh questions Pentecost on just what their plan is. Pentecost explains that they are formulating a plan to drop a nuclear weapon into the channel between dimensions. Pentecost meets again with Geisler and Gottlieb. Gottlieb predicts that mathematically, the number of Kaiju coming up through the rift is increasing. Meanwhile, Geisler wonders if they can learn more about the Kaiju, if they are able to drift with its brain. Having a portion of one, he is eager to test his theory, but is denied by Pentecost, who decides to follow Gottlieb's research. Without his brother, Raleigh is tasked with helping to find a replacement partner. Raleigh becomes irritated when Mako keeps calling him out regarding the number of moves to take down his opponent. After winning approval from Pentecost, Raleigh spars with her, and is amazed at her prowess. He proclaims that she should help him co-pilot Gypsy Danger. Eventually, Mako is given permission. A test run of Gypsy Danger within the Shatterdome appears to be going well, until during the drift session. Mako gets locked into a tragic memory and almost sets off the Jaeger's plasma cannon within the dome. Following the incident, Raleigh understands more about Mako and Pentecost. When Mako was a child, she lost her family to a Kaiju attack in Tokyo. Just when it seemed the Kaiju was going to kill her, a Jaeger was deployed and stopped it. The pilot of the Jaeger was Pentecost himself. Even with her becoming unfocused in the drift, Raleigh still wants Mako as his partner, but is again rebuffed by Pentecost. Meanwhile, Dr. Geisler has hooked up a crude connection machine, and hooks into the Kaiju brain in his lab. The strain of the drift is quite overwhelming for Geisler, and Gottlieb shuts it down. Geisler reports to Pentecost and his men that the link allowed him a glimpse into the other side of the portal. Unfortunately, the kaiju brain has been damaged, and Geisler needs a fresher brain in order to learn more. Pentecost gives him a small card, and sends him to Hong Kong to look for a man named Hannibal Chow. Geisler finds Chow, who is actually an American going under an alias. Chow is a dealer in kaiju remains, collecting them from battle sites and dealing them on the black market. Geisler tells Chow that he wants an intact brain. Chow balks at the idea since recovering a kaiju brain is nearly impossible. Geisler still bats around Chow's arrogance and questioning demeanor, saying that he can use a kaiju secondary brain instead. He mentions how he drifted with a kaiju brain, leading Chow to reveal that he had also drifted with a kaiju brain before. He also mentions that the aliens can send any kaiju to find him in the city, due to the connection. Shortly after their discussion, 2 Category 4 kaiju surface near Hong Kong. Pentecost sends out Crimson Typhoon in the Cherno Alpha to fight the kaijus, with Striker Eureka as backup to protect the city's coastline. Just as discussion had seemed to point to the kaiju becoming more dangerous, the 2 that have emerged come with extra accoutrements. One possesses a pouch in its throat containing acid that melts away Cherno Alpha's armor. Crimson Typhoon's crew take her into the fight, but she is soon overwhelmed by one of the kaiju that uses a clawed tail to rip off the Jaeger's head. Cherno Alpha is attacked by the larger of the 2 kaiju, and is defeated when forced underwater. The kaiju crushes Cherno Alpha's reactor, drowning both pilots. The father and son team piloting Striker Eureka abandon their orders to protect Hong Kong, and charges towards the kaijus. However, the other kaiju lets loose an EMP burst that disables Striker Eureka, along with the equipment in the Shatterdome. With 2 hours until the system can be rebooted, Striker Eureka is dead in the water, until Raleigh offers a solution. Though the newer models of Jaeger are digital, the Gypsy Danger is analog, and thus more resistant to EMP attacks. Pentecost sends out Raleigh and Mako, who end up destroying the EMP-armed kaiju after a protracted battle, but the other one ends up heading into Hong Kong. While Chow and his associates have fled to their bunker, Dr. Geisler has been thrown out into the streets by Chow to hide in a public fallout shelter. Just then, Gypsy Danger appears and distracts the kaiju. The battle goes through many buildings, and Gypsy is able to freeze and shatter the kaiju's tail, and tear out its acid sac. However, the battle takes a turn when the kaiju suddenly sprouts giant wings and begins to carry the Jaeger into Earth's upper atmosphere. Utilizing a new weapon, a large chain sword, they manage to destroy it before plummeting back to Earth, barely regaining control of the Jaeger to make a safe landing. Raleigh and Mako return to the Shatterdome. During the jubilation, Raleigh sees Pentecost bleeding slightly from both nostrils. In private, Pentecost explains how in the earlier days of the Jaeger program, shielding from nuclear contaminants had not been considered, and that his condition has been worsening over time. Meanwhile, Geisler has returned to Chow and demands claim over the dead kaiju's secondary brain. Chow's men attempt to get to it, but find it damaged and useless. However, they also discover the kaiju is actually pregnant before their communication link with Chow goes dead. Just then, an infant kaiju breaks through a slit in the side of its mother, and attempts to escape before falling down, seemingly choking on its own umbilical cord. As Chow gloats over the dead infant kaiju, the kaiju rears up and swallows him whole. Dr. Gottlieb soon shows up in Hong Kong with Geisler's machine, although the first attempt almost killed him. Gottlieb volunteers to drift with Geisler to learn more through the infant kaiju's brain and handle the strain of the experience together. Plans are soon made to set up the Gypsy Danger and Striker Eureka to deliver the warhead to the undersea rift. With his father unable to pilot Striker Eureka due to a broken arm, Herc Hansen is left without a partner. Pentecost surprises everyone when he takes the role. However, the strain of piloting a Jaeger could prove fatal to Pentecost, but he volunteers anyway. As the 2 Jaegers near the rift, Geisler and Gottlieb rush into the Shatterdome's control room, and explain that the plan will not work. The channel between dimensions will only allow in a kaiju, the very reason for the previous failures to destroy the channel with other nuclear weapons. The 2 Jaegers battle 2 Category 4 kaijus guarding the rift, as a third kaiju, a Category 5, larger and more powerful than the previous kaijus, emerges. Gypsy Danger and Striker Eureka sustain heavy damage in the battle. Unable to deliver the bomb, Striker Eureka detonates it to take out the defending kaiju and give Gypsy Danger a chance to enter the rift. Once inside, Raleigh and Mako will detonate Gypsy's nuclear reactor and destroy the rift. Gypsy attaches itself to the Category 5 kaiju and fall with it into the rift, bypassing the code that would reject any non-kaiju. Inside the kaiju dimension, Raleigh ejects Mako in a life pod and manually initiates the detonation of the nuclear core. As Gypsy Danger enters the other dimension, Raleigh ejects in his own pod before Gypsy Danger explodes and collapses the rift, ending the kaiju threat once and for all. On the surface of the Pacific Ocean, both pods reach the surface. For a brief period it seems that Raleigh may be dead, but he awakens, much to Mako's joy. Remember to like this video, and subscribe to this channel for more movie recaps.